everyone, and welcome to the 48th episode of Slime Time Sidequest, an official Dragon's Den podcast. This is one of your hosts, Plattym3.
And this is Yangus, the legendary bandit. Hello, everybody. It's been a while since we've last done a new episode. Platty's been traveling, summer's kept us all busy, you know how it goes.
That's right. So, tonight we're going to talk about every single day of my long June vacation and what I ate in our first ever vacation food episode. Sit back, everybody. This is going to be a spicy one.
Ooh, oh boy. I'm not going to bite that bait nor do another vacation episode right now. Tonight we'll be skipping right to the chase. We're doing another year episode. We're jumping 10 years into the future from our last episode and going on to 2013. Plenty of great games from that year, especially for RPG fans.
Yeah, okay. I suppose that's probably more an exciting topic for our listeners. So, all right, feel free to finish talking us in, Yangus.
Oh, no. You can finish talking us in. Look, I know you've got a lot to say, and you got that vacation planned energy. You got to get that out of your system, so go right ahead.
All right. If you insist. So you're right. We got a lot of ground to cover, and we got a lot of help tonight. So returning to us from our 2003 episode, our last one, we've got Pendy, Mattcraft, and perhaps again joining us virtually from somewhere in the depths of the ocean, Jay from Big Shark Gaming, but no promises on him. Hey, Pendy. Hey, Matt.
Hello.
Hi, Matt.
Hi, all.
All right, so I'm going to start us off here because I do have my vacation-fueled energy going on, and it is summertime, and I didn't even think about it for the first, couple hours that we had started playing this episode, but 2013 was supposed to be the best summer for me. I had just gotten married the year before. I was expecting a baby in August of 2013, and there were all these 4 games coming out. And I remember there's a post on the Den where I went crazy, it's going to be the summer of 4. It's going to be the summer of 4 because Etrian Odyssey came out in February of 2013. I was a little bit behind on gaming, so I knew I'd probably get to that in the summer. Shin Megami Tensei 4 was coming out in July, and I'd not touched that series, but it looked awesome. I was like, I want to get into that with 4. And Rune Factory 4 was supposed to come out that summer. It ended up not doing so. It ended up getting pushed 2 months. It came out October 1st. But at the beginning of the year, I'm like, this is awesome. I haven't beat a game in 6 months. I don't know what it was between wedding planning and everything. The second half of 2012 just got away from me. And then I was getting into 2013. And I was like, I'm time to plan and get a whole bunch of stuff done. So summer of 4. Didn't quite work out that way. When Etrian Odyssey 4 came out, I hadn't played 3 yet, so I started the summer with Etrian Odyssey 3, thinking it'd be 50, 60 hours like the other games, and I sunk well over to 100 hours in that. I got boating all around the world in Etrian Odyssey 3, and I did get to Etrian Odyssey 4, beat it by the end of August, got caught up in a couple other things. Rune Factory I didn't actually play until Christmas time, and then SMT4, golly, I think I played it in 2014 and got stuck, lost in Tokyo, set it aside, and finally beat it in the summer of 2015. So my summer didn't go quite as planned, but I did end up playing and beating all those 3 games eventually. I know Yangus is going to talk SMT4 later, but for my first game, I'm going to kind of share the spotlight with Yangus and talk Etrian Odyssey 4. I played it back-to-back with Etrian Odyssey 3, and I'll be honest, I loved it, but maybe coming off of Etrian Odyssey 3, it was a little bit of a downgrade for me, just as much as I love the boating. It did have an awesome overworld. I thought that was a little bit cooler with the taking the airship to different dungeons. It wasn't just one huge Yggdrasil, straight up 25, 30 floors in, 4, 5, 6 stratums in one area, one go. There were different amounts of floors. I think it wasn't the early one, maybe just 2 or 3, Yangus?
No, so how it is that in Etrian 4, there's still the 6 stratum system, but what they did, there is a main labyrinth for each area, 3 in the last one because you access 4 at the beginning, 5 at the end of that, and 6 is the post-game one there. Mm-hmm. There are 3 floors per main labyrinth. except for the fifth stratum, which is has its own little twist that you discover very early on. You basically go back through parts of the previous ones you weren't able to access before, and that's what you used to then get into the main meat of the fifth labyrinth. But anyway, there is 3 floors per main labyrinth otherwise, and there's a bunch of mini, I think they're just called mazes, if I remember correct, or like little labyrinths, where they're like
That's
kind
what
of
I'm
dotted
thinking
all
of.
over. They're just I think they're only like a 5x5 or 6x6, like on the grid
You're
map
right.
thing. But I mean, they're not very big. They all just have like their own little thing. Like, oh, this one you have to watch out for these frogs that are jumping across these squares. Some of them jump diagonally, some jump horizontally, vertically, just depending on what kind of art they are. But yeah, that's kind of just the main structure. There's your 3, or there's your 6 big ones you go through, the 6th one being the post game, and then the other ones are just kind of dotted around. Some you need to do for some story progress. Other ones are just kind of there as like, hey, here's a little place you can go and explore, and there might be a side quest or something attached to it.
Mm-hmm. And, there's always, you can get equipment by beating the different enemies in there, so that's always good. How do you like the FOEs actually being, you could see which ones they were?
Yeah, that was
the glowing ball.
Rip glowing ball. It did come back for 5, though, which was a fun little Easter egg. But, no, like, the thing with 4, I guess we should talk about that, is that, so the first 3 games on the DS were all in 2D, where they had, it was the artwork itself for the characters, for the monsters, all that good stuff, but everything was 2D. With Etrian Odyssey 4 on the 3DS, this was when they started doing, one, they could do a little bit of higher quality maps and designs and stuff for the labyrinths, but then they also started making all the enemies and stuff 3D, so everything had a nice 3D model to it, and with foes, they made it so now, instead of it being like, oh, we don't know what we're gonna run into and encounter here when we touch the foe ball. Now we're gonna be able to see which one we're gonna encounter and have to deal with. So makes it a little easier to plan ahead, as well as the fact that they added a little like aura system where, like, if you look on your map on the bottom screen, if it's blue, it's gonna be an easier fight for you. Yellow, it's gonna be a little more challenging, and red means stay away from it, otherwise it's gonna kill you. Well, they could kill you anyway, regardless of the color. But it was a nice little new addition to, because I feel like with 4.2, this is where a lot of people really started to discover the series, because they had a demo on the eShop. You could transfer over your saved data to the main game once you got that, whether it was digitally or physically. And I've seen a lot of people over the years say, like, usually it's 3 or 4 is the first one they played, and it's usually that's one of their personal favorites.
I think that may be the first game demo I ever played, to be honest.
Oh, yeah?
Yep, out of, like, anything, because 2013, when did the actual, like, 3DS come out?
2011.
Okay, so I actually got it early, but, like, I still had so many DS games. Like, I feel like I only played DS games on it forever. To be honest, I think Etrian Odyssey 4 might have been the first, like, 3DS game I played on it. Because I know Pokemon Black and White were not, and I loved keeping the 3D on. Just going through the mazes, I thought was pretty cool with the 3D.
Yeah, it really adds a nice like sense of depth as you're exploring.
So I just kind of copied and pasted some stuff from the wiki to talk about, other than the obvious. But there was food on the overworld. There were things that you could find when you were in the airship, and said here that you could either sell for money or increase your stats. I remember. Okay. Oh gosh, I just remember there was foes on the world map.
Yeah, and that was actually crazy too, because they were like, I mean, they have a little model.
It was almost like a puzzle
airship
to get away from them.
Yeah, because some of them you could bait with food to get around them, because otherwise they try and chase you. But when you look at how, like, the size of your ship versus what the overworld ones are, like, they're just gigantic. Like they're like a kaiju Godzilla size thing almost. There's even a quest, which actually this was a cool idea. So the Etrian games usually have a trio of bosses that are like, you beat them in the post game, it raises your level cap. It's the 3 dragons. Like, what is it? The Storm Emperor, the Great Dragon, which is the red one of fire, and then there's the Blizzard King, which is the ice one. like all three of them usually were just kind of hidden in the mazes. Well, now when you get to the post game, and in some cases you can encounter them kind of flying around earlier on, they're just absolutely massive compared to your little ship and like all your characters. Like they're pretty big in the dungeon itself, but now here you're taking these dragons that were already huge, and they've just grown to a gigantic size to fit this new overworld system. It's great. It's so cool to show like the scope of these massive beings of power.
Yeah, I think just like the FOEs of the first one where you would, maybe you didn't really believe it when they said don't run into that, and then you were like, holy fucking shit. Yeah. Party wipe. Anytime I'm sure everybody in their first Etrian Odyssey game just tried it, Let's try it. Oh, really? How hard can this be? Yeah. No, that was a cool thing to, again, bring back another sense of like, oh, shit. So we had the fully orchestrated soundtrack. Mm-hmm. And trying to think what else there was. Did the airship go farther? Was there a limit to how far you could go?
So how it was in the game was that there were different levels of ascension that the airship could go. It's like you had just 1, 2, 3, and you had to get certain items to upgrade your ship. So then you could be like, oh, here now you can reach the 3rd ascension level.
Reach the plateau. Yeah,
because that's actually one of the mini dungeons you have to use. You can see the 2nd stratum / labyrinth when you get to the 2nd area, the sacred pillars, but you can't reach it because it's up on a cliff, and there's no way for your ship to fly up there because for story reasons, airship technology is pretty new to the world, and for the city of Tharsis, which is where you're based out of in this game, they have not gotten. They haven't been able to travel north up into the sacred pillars and the lands beyond, but they don't have the technology to get the airships to ascend to a higher altitude. Mm-hmm. So you then find this altitude. It's like, hey, now we can go up there. You get into, I think it's either the 3rd or the 4th land. I don't remember which, but that's where you then get the ability to travel up to the highest altitude that you can, which is then when you can reach where like the dragons are hidden at and where some like secret ingredients are. So. But yeah, no, they it was a fun idea for something new to the series too. This overworld travel.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked the ship in 3, and I reviewed the games. I mean, you're almost done with the first one now, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm on floor 25, but it's a long walk.
Oh yeah,
we're
talking about the Etrian Odyssey Origins collection came out this summer. I think June 1st, wasn't it?
Yeah.
For Switch and also for PC. But I've went through the first stratum of pretty much all 3 games before writing a little thing for RP Gamer recently, and oh my god, I actually started with 3 because I just wanted to get to the ship thing again. And I forgot how limiting it was right from the beginning. It's like you can move 5 squares, the end.
Yep.
And then you go back.
You gotta build up your supplies to go out further.
Yeah, and then the island with the little army ants on it, and then this and this, and so I think I got like 10 or 15 squares I can move now. But yeah, I was like, oh man, 4 didn't have that. Like 4 let you go as far as you wanted, but then there was those plateaus. Like you kind of got locked off from areas. There was other ways that they blocked you off from going as far as everywhere.
Yeah, and if you encounter some of those overworld foes too early, you're SOL. I remember the big thing when the demo for 4 was out, that people were trying to figure out the optimal way to take down the Bounding Beast, which was this kangaroo-looking foe that was running around on the overworld, because you only can go up to level 10 in the demo. So people were trying to figure out if there was a way to comfortably beat it, because at that point you only get 1 skill point per level up. You only have so many, I think at that point you only get 13 or 14 max. So people were trying to figure out what's the optimal way to take this thing down. It was a challenge, and then you had to try and take down the shiny version of it too. So that was an extra layer right there. Because
that's right.
That's a new thing versions. To this one.
My goodness.
Yeah, that's a new thing to this game to the series entirely. At this point, they introduced what they call, I think it's just called rare variants, but I mean they're shiny. But you get into a battle, they have like a golden sheen to them, like sparkles and all that stuff, and usually you have to try, they're basically like a metal slime from Dragon Quest. You want to try and kill it as fast as you can in order to get the EXP from it. And but the thing is too, they also get stronger every turn that they're still in the battle. So, and if you run into a foe that's a shiny version, you can get slaughtered pretty quick if you don't take it down fast.
Man, all these things are coming back to me right now. Definitely. So, I mean, that's about as much as I remember about Etrian Odyssey 4. Like, playing 3 and 4 back-to-back for, my God, 170 or whatever hours over the course of, like, that entire summer.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely got me back into gaming. Like, I looked it up, and, like, I had not beat a game since, like, August of 2012, Pokemon White, and then until, like, spring of 13, I think I beat something small, and then I did Etrian Odyssey 3 and 4 for like 4 months. So that really like kickstarted me. Like, let's go, man! I've missed gaming. But,
yeah.
All right, go ahead. I was going to say, go ahead and give your last thoughts on 4.
Oh yeah. So 4. This was I believe it's. So I kind of have like jumped around a lot with the series. So I started with the third one, like Platty did. I had not heard about the series before that one. Like Nintendo Power talked about the third one. I've probably mentioned this story before. But when the fourth one was coming out, that's when I was in my first, like halfway through my first year of college. So admittedly, it did take me until like the summer of that year to really get into it. I played it here and there, but it was like, okay, I like the thing I like about Etrian Odyssey 2 is that you don't really necessarily don't have a lot of story, so it's a really good and easy RPG to just kind of you can just kind of play. It's very gameplay heavy, and I appreciate that. You do have some story stuff and character development, things like that, all that stuff you kind of expect from an RPG. But it's also nice, and that's why I've really been enjoying like going back to this Origins collection too. Is that it's just been nice to kind of play an RPG, but you don't have to necessarily focus on the story. You get to focus more on the gameplay side of things. But with 4, I did like how they really revamped like the kind of overworld travel thing they had from 3, but now they made it like a full-fledged way to explore the world. At first, it was a little weird that the labyrinths were all kind of disconnected, but going back to what I talked about earlier with the 5th labyrinth, there actually is a cool twist to that, which was like, oh, that's an interesting way they did that. That's pretty neat, actually. But yeah, I like 4. I wouldn't say it's like my top tier game for this series for me, but it's a very good experience from beginning to end, and it's a very good entry point for the series as well for anybody who might be new to this Etrian games. It'll still have its parts where it can be difficult, of course, but I would say compared to some of the other ones, it's a little bit of an easier stepping stone to get into. And I was going to say you might be saying the same thing I was going to. Go ahead. I was just going to say I know people back in the day were kind of mad that they added a casual mode, but basically casual mode just does the thing where it's like, oh, if you die, you just you keep your experience. It's kind of the Dragon Quest thing where like you just get kicked back to town. You lose part of your money, but you still keep your experience, items, all that stuff. And really, that's about the only difference. It's just like, hey, you have that, so you can just don't have to feel too big of a loss. But if you play regular, it's not really gonna that's the main difference with the difficulties, from what I understand. Yeah, unlike the Etrian Odyssey collection, kind of the only thing I knocked it on when I reviewed all 3 of those games was the picnic setting is like ridiculous. Yep. Like you could walk up to a foe on the first level and just hit attack, and didn't even have to use a skill, and you would win. Yep, I'm like, okay, this is a little, this is a little too easy. Like, the picnic or the what you were talking about, the casual. Like, okay, so you can go a little bit more all out and not be too worried about just getting a game over. That's fine. And the DLC that the Untold games came with, if you wanted to pay $1 to have an easy EXP or gold thing so that, maybe you just get a couple extra levels in there. So, it's not so stressful the whole time. But yeah, the picnic level that they added for that collection was, it's too easy. I mean, it's like story mode for games that don't have a lot of story. Like, what the hell's left at that point? Yeah, that's the funniest part too to me. Like, I was clicking through them to see what the description said. Yeah, you pick picnic. It's like, this is for people who want to enjoy the story. And I'm looking at it, and I'm just like, because with the first game, like the third game, I can understand. Fourth game, especially, I can understand. But like the first game and the second one, especially the first, it's like there's really not that much actual plot stuff that happens until like way later, right? And even then, it's just like that's okay. Yeah, there's a little surprise. Like I think you mentioned the other day, there's a twist. Yes, but you know what? Like running through 20-some floors on Picnic just to get to that twist, I don't know if that's going to pay off as much. Like, I feel like that this difficulty would be good for speedrunners if people wanted to see how fast they could get through the game.
Yeah.
But I will say, too, like, just maybe we should go back to 4 then, but I will say with the picnic difficulty, it is really nice for training up some new character classes. Like, if you want to try and get characters back up to, like, the same level as your main party, for instance. Like, I did that with one where when I unlocked the Ronin class and the Hexer class, it's like, well, cool, now I can use them, but, I mean, it's going to be really hard to train these guys up because, you know, this is talking the original, I should say. It's hard to train them up because, you know, if they go into these later floors, I mean, they're going to die in one hit. There's really not much you can do about it. But at least with this Origins collection, they made it so now it's like, hey, if you put it on Picnic, yeah, you're not going to die, but you're going to get a lot of extra experience points. So I think it's a great way to train up some of these new characters to get them, like, closer to levels to your main party, especially for these ones that have, like, the unlockable classes. Because I'm probably going to do the same thing when I get to Etrian 3 eventually, do that for the Shogun and the Yig droid that you can unlock from the different options.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess going back to 4 and you actually talking about the twist thing, I will say that 4 has some really interesting plot twists to it as well. Well, I guess it's okay to kind of talk about it since it is post-game and, you know, not everybody goes through it. But, like, the 6th stratum of Etrian 4, I think that is some of the best atmosphere that the series has to offer because, so just quick explanation. Usually the 6 stratums are where the game, like, will no longer pull its punches. It's going to just basically be like, here you go, have fun. It's going to throw every tough situation it can at you. With Etrian 4s, though, it does have that, but it's a lot like, I would say, almost like you're playing like a first-person horror RPG. Because I don't remember if you went through the 6th stratum or not, Platty, when you played 4, but it's this place called the Hall of Darkness, which is like, okay, whatever, you know, not super intimidating name. The music is this very atmospheric, like, creepy, sort of Silent Hill sounding stuff. There's moments where the music just completely cuts out as different dialogue boxes pop up, and there's little cutscenes that you can find. Like, I still remember this one vividly. There's a little doll that you find, and it's just like, oh, that's weird, I wonder why this is here. So you're going through, like, the 2nd floor, you get to a spot where there's a bookshelf, and you click the little description box thing, and it says, you see on the bookshelf that there's an empty spot here. It seems that there's one doll sitting there, but there's an empty spot. So you can put it there, and it's like, oh, you know, these 2 little dolls look like they're happy together. I think it's like supposed to be like a man and a woman, and you get a little item for it. Well, as you then turn around and take a step away, you then have a dialogue box that pops up. Music completely cuts out, and it's like, as you start walking away from the happy little scene you made, you hear a loud smashing sound behind you. You turn around, one of the dolls is just completely crushed and the other one's totally gone, and you get no explanation for it. I wish I had the full text to describe it, but it was honestly, like, when I played this, it was also late at night too, so it kind of got to me. And that's why I like this series so much too, is that they do such a great job with the text descriptions. It's like reading a book pretty much. So because you get that visual in your head and you're like, oh shit, what just happened? Yeah, it's great. I love the 6th stratum in this game so much. A lot of them are pretty good, but this is probably like the standout part of Etrian 4 when you beat the game is to definitely go through the stratum, especially if you kind of like kind of scary horror stuff like that, because it gets you like in the mood. It's like, oh crap, man, this is getting serious now.
I know I didn't do that one because I know for 5 I was so proud of myself that I actually went through and did like the bonus stratum like all the way for the first time. So I might have dibbled it in the other games, but knowing especially that I played 3 for like 100 hours and then went into this, like I think I was Etrian'd out by the time I got to the end. So rolling credits was pretty good, and time to move on to something else. But interesting.
Yeah, these games definitely give you your bang for your buck for RPGs. Yeah. That's why I like them. Got a lot to offer.
All right, Mattcraft. What game or other thing did you want to talk about? Let's start with your first one.
Well, let me talk about the first one. Oh, I am going to go into Rogue Legacy. Rogue Legacy obviously came out in 2013, and it starts kind of like out in a movie. You are a big, beefy armor guy with a sword. You're going through the castle. You eventually clear out... One moment, please.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
I was just hoping that his doll didn't smash him.
Yep. It came out behind him, tried to hit him with the hammer. He's like,
He
oh,
turned around and started to talk, and then bam!
He's got that Chucky doll.
All right, I am back. So,
All right, so Rogue Legacy, guy with a sword.
going through the castle, lightning, all kinds of wonderful crap in a pixely landscape. Oh. And then, right at the end of it, after you kill the king on the throne, you die. And that's it. Thus starts one of the first majorly remembered roguelikes over the course of the last 10 years. In Rogue Legacy, you do the same procedurally generated dungeon again, over and over and over and over again, while you massively regenerate your family's long-lost manor, until eventually you end up killing the 4 main bosses that lock the central door of the castle that you keep going through, and then you win. However, Rogue Legacy's simplistic art direction and gameplay awarded it several minor awards from many websites, as well as making it accessible enough to re-release on just about every single game system imaginable, up until the Switch at its release. And Rogue Legacy also goes into my secondary item of 2013. You may have heard of it, you may have not. But in 2013, a literal little cube came out with an Android fork and a boomerang-shaped controller called the Ouya. Weirdest name ever. But going off of one of the most successful Kickstarters in history, the Ouya made grand promises. Simplistic gaming system with an HDMI input and output, and one of the arguably easiest ways to release games, period, and Android operating system. In 2013, the Ouya only did one thing, sadly. It crashed. It crashed hard. Unable to realistically bring up any of its promises, the Ouya floundered for about 4 or 5 years before ultimately getting absorbed into, believe it or not, Razer. Our lovely little friends that made the Razer Shield and various mice, mouse pads, and keyboards, ultimately to dissolve every single thing that has to do with the system into the year 2019. Ouya is also known for the Free the Games Fund, which used some of its Kickstarter money to try to bring some more games to its floundering system. Ultimately, even though it was promised to have games such as Rogue Legacy and a couple of classics such as The Bard's Tale and even a Fork of Earthworn Jim, it was sadly never to be. And the Ouya died in obscurity. Any questions?
Did you have one? The Ouya, Matt?
I don't know. Someone should have a question. I'm pretty sure one of y'all heard of the Ouya.
Did you have an Ouya?
Oh, yeah. Believe it or not, I took a bunch of random crap up to GameStop, and a buddy of mine was with me, and his exact words were, "Why in the world are you buying this?" So I'm one of the few people that actually owned an Ouya, and to be perfectly honest, the only positive thing that I have to say about it is that I still have the controller in a drawer somewhere, and it works well as a generic Bluetooth controller.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it before I learned that you were going to talk about it tonight.
Yep.
Apparently,
if you can still find one, they work well as an Android gaming box if you can wipe it. And RetroArch on it will play games on it as far up as PS1. So what began as a wonderful idea on paper died in obscurity in real.
you know, as Kickstarter does. All right, Pendy, what a 2013 gem do you want to talk about? Or 2013 bomb, as Mattcraft has regaled us with.
So my first game will be Barbie Gloom and Glam Pups. It's a virtual
Timely.
Yes, it's a virtual pet game in which players groom, train, dress, and show scientists in a high-fashion game environment under the watchful eye of their in-game mentor, Oppenheimer. The game features 6 available breeds of dog in scientist form, selected for use in the game based on their specific scientific prowess and dramatic styling potential. Now, I'm joking around Barbenheimer style, of course, but there really was such a Barbie game that year, minus the scientist. In fact, there were 2 Barbie games that year, the other one being Barbie's Dream House, a title that I'm sure we all played back then. No, not just me, maybe? Okay, so I'm not here to talk about either one of those, though. I am here to talk about one of my favorite games, Project Cross Zone, featuring Dante from the Devil May Cry series. It's actually simply called Project Cross Zone, and it features many familiar characters from many different games. There are playable characters, enemies, and bosses from Street Fighter, Tekken, Resident Evil, Dot Hack, Xenosaga, Tales of Darkstalkers, Mega Man X, and many titles. And you guessed it, Devil May Cry as well. There are a total of 66 playable characters. Ever dream of taking characters such as Ryu from Street Fighter and Cosmos from Xenosaga and putting them together in a turn-based strategy RPG? Well, this game is for you, and it was for me. This game was released on the 3DS, developed by Monolith Soft together with Capcom and Red Entertainment, and published by Namco Bandai. Of the 66 characters, some are what they call paired units, where they have 2 units together. So, for example, you'll have Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine from Resident Evil, who are locked to each other as a pair. Some units are single units, such as Ooh La La from Space Channel 5. Before a battle starts, you can assign these solo units to a pair unit for an extra attack and support function that they can sometimes do in the field. Battles take place on a grid-type board. When you engage an enemy, it's all about the timed attacks. This is what I like about this game so much, is how these attacks work. Unless they are blocking, pretty much any attack will launch an enemy into the air. You start off with 3 attacks, and you can level your pairs up to 5, and you can all combo those attacks together. In addition to those attacks, you can bring in your support character and a nearby friendly unit for 2 additional attacks. The whole time, you are trying to keep the enemy in the air as you're timing your attacks. And if you time your hit just before they hit the ground, you can score a critical hit. The bigger your combo is, and the more critical hits you do, the more experience you gain for your characters to level up. You'll also have a gauge that fills up for a devastating special attack that has its own special animation to it. Is there much of a plot to this game? Not really. There are 2 original protagonists that came up for Project Cross Zone, and they are investigating the theft of a portal stone, and strange portals appear all over the place that transport all of these characters all around their prospective worlds. Throughout the 40 missions, you'll end up in the home worlds of many of the characters you recruit. The villains of these various worlds are trying to capitalize on these connected worlds, and of course, chaos ensues. The fun of this game comes from being able to mix and match all these fun characters throughout all these different worlds using the turn-based tactical strategy gameplay it has. It's very satisfying to me using all these special attacks to juggle around all the bad guys around from fight to fight. It's also very entertaining to see all these characters interact with each other, especially since they just come from all different ranges of different games. The potential negatives of this game does get a bit fan servicey sometimes with its jiggle physics and some special attack animations. I don't mind that, but I realize it's not, everyone's cup of tea. Also, the overall tactical strategy for the game isn't really deep compared to a lot of other games in this genre or subgenre. The biggest challenge is to make sure you don't get overwhelmed by the hordes of enemies that they'll throw at you. In this game, there will be a lot. Fun fact, the opening movie for this game was done by Studio Trigger. They are famous for making popular anime such as Kill la Kill, Cyberpunk Edge Runners, and even a couple of episodes in Star Wars Visions. And as has happened many times in the past, the company underestimated its Western appeal. It sold more than 10 times what they expected in the West. Its worldwide sales added up to 400,000 sold. So, if you try this game out and you really like it, there's more. There was a Project Cross Zone sequel, appropriately named Project Cross Zone 2, also for the 3DS, and there is a Japan-only Namco Cross Capcom for the PS2. Like I said, it was a Japan-only release, but there is an English fan translation patch for it.
So you're telling me that there's a game out there with jiggle physics that doesn't quite have the deepest of combat?
Yes.
Wow. That blows my mind.
I know, shocker, right?
They're usually so deep.
No, this is just a game for the fans of those particular series and all those games and all that and that type of combat, just to kind of slap it all together and have those characters interact with each other and do the crazy combos that they have, and it's just kind of mindless good fun.
Nice.
But if neither one of those titles have Breath of Fire or Dragon Quest, sadly enough, Project X Zone made me sad.
Oh, no, I don't. Yeah, I don't think. I'm trying to think. Project Cross Zone 2, if they had Breath of Fire characters, I don't think they did. They had some fun new characters like Phoenix Wright and people like that. They also had some Fire Emblem characters, but I don't think they had Breath of Fire, which is kind of surprising because they had a lot of Capcom characters in these series. But maybe, I haven't played Namco Cross Capcom, so I don't know the roster for that one. So I don't know. I'll have to check it out.
Nah. They sadly did not pop back up until the mobile game Teppen.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Alrighty. Yangus, you want to talk your second game, or you want me to go next?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and talk mine.
Right.
So for, as Platty mentioned before, he had the Summer of 4. One of the big games in the middle of the summer of that year, 2013, was Shin Megami Tensei 4. It's been about 10 years since the release of SMT3, so it was cool to see that a new mainline game was going to be finally coming. It was coming for the 3DS. You play as the young samurai named Flynn, who lives in the Eastern Kingdom of Mikado. He and 4 other young adults who have come of age, I believe it's 18 or 19 or so, they are chosen by these mysterious artifacts that they call the gauntlets, which have a fairy that lives inside them that they call burrows. Well, after a few incidences in the first part of the game where you go around the Eastern Kingdom of Mikado, you go into the Dungeon of Naraku to help fight off the demons that could potentially threaten the lands above the caves and of the cave network system. You eventually make your way down into the depths of the earth and find that there's not only more of these mysterious relics like the gauntlets far below, there's an entire city. It's the city of Tokyo. As you make your way through the game, you start to learn that apparently 25 years ago, there was an ICBM strike that was going to hit the country of Japan, totally wipe it off the face of the earth, as well as some other countries that were going through a similar thing due to the rise of demon invasions, due to in Japan, it was a device known as the Yamato Perpetual Reactor, which was supposed to be an endless energy source. Long story short, one of the guardian deities of Japan tried to protect it and created this thing called the firmament, protecting all of Tokyo from the strikes. From there was a group of people that managed to escape from Tokyo before it was hit by the bombs. They formed a new society above the firmament, which then became the Eastern Kingdom of Mikado. You learn why they were able to advance so quickly, even though it's 25 years different time. But anyway, so you play as the young samurai named Flynn, who is going through the Kingdom of Mikado, the land of the city of Tokyo underneath. You do the usual kind of Shin Megami Tensei thing where you go around, you explore, you start to learn about the world, and eventually you reach the point where you have to make a choice of what side you're going to go with. With one of the 3 other samurai that do stick around, the 4th one has a bit of a freak out and a panic attack, and he's no longer eligible, which is a real shame because he would have made the perfect candidate for the 4th route that they actually added to this game as an option. But anyway, it's the kind of the usual Shin Megami Tensei gameplay style. You have your turn-based combat. You have all these demons that you can coerce to join you. You fuse them together to create new ones. With this one, they also added a pretty robust side quest system. There's a lot of the usual stuff where it's like, I need this sort of material. I need this. But there's also a lot of story-driven ones as well. So there's a side quest chain that involves this young girl who, she's a hunter, which are what the kind of the mercenaries of Japan are that fight off the demons, protect the people. She becomes involved with the fairy kind and wants to try and make a home for them. You have the ones that involve the encountering with some of the fiends, which are one of the more powerful races of demons within the series. And let's see what else is there. This was also the first time where they introduced a bit of DLC to it. A lot of the DLC was just some new quests that you could do, and as well as giving you the option to fight special versions of some of the bosses, and end up getting that version of the boss as a recruitable demon if you had the right ones to fuse it with. I really liked 4 a lot. I would probably say this is my favorite SMT game after Strange Journey. I would definitely say it's my favorite 3DS RPG of an original one that's like a non-remake or something. But this is one that I really got into, was really hooked from start to finish. I put like 200 hours or so into the game, getting all the different endings and just trying to get all the demons and stuff to complete the compendium and everything. And I really liked how this game not only handled its story, but for the 3DS limitations that they had, they did a lot of really good stuff with the presentation of the game. Not a lot of nice artwork, a lot of nice environments, very good atmosphere, like the usual stuff for like SMT's usually very good about that, and really Atlas games in general are pretty good about that, nailing the atmosphere for the areas that you go to. But what I really liked was that there was a nice character dynamic between Flynn, your main character, even though he's kind of the silent protagonist type, and the other characters, Isabeau, Walter, and Jonathan. Everybody has really good voice acting for in the main group of 4. You have that nice sense of camaraderie because they'll join you in battle too to help fight monsters and demons that you come across. Sometimes it can be a bit of a disadvantage if they end up trying to use a spell that a demon is actually strong against. Instead, it makes it a little more difficult for you then. But it was a nice idea anyway. And a fun one. And I did like how there was that, that kinship between them at first, but then as their views and ideologies start to come into play, where they encounter the different factions that are in Tokyo, you then start to have them kind of breaking apart. And when the group does finally fully split up, it's just like, oh no, now we lost. There's a great setup for it, but then when it finally breaks apart, it's like, oh man, nice rise and fall kind of action, I guess is how I would put it. But I really liked how, like I said with 4, how it did its story as well. And I especially liked how towards the end of the game, you get a encounter. It's when you finally get to this Yamato perpetual reactor that's been causing all these issues in Japan back 25 years before the game started. You get there and you then end up going into 2 alternate different worlds that are much like the Tokyo / Mikado that you came from, but you see the results of what would have happened if, X situation had occurred instead, or if this situation hadn't played out as anticipated. And it's really cool how they made sort of the main character for both the alternate versions of the same character that's, been affected by the different circumstances of it. And then, from there you end up getting into your selected route, which I will say the funniest thing when I played this was that when I got to that point where it was like, all right, it's time for you to lock in which route you're going to be in, I made one choice, and it put me in the law route, and I'm like, I really don't want to do that. So I went back, reloaded my file, went and picked the opposite one. And whatever it must have been just the right balance for me going neutral, because I got the neutral route then. Which was, I try and do that first when I play one of these games anyway, to get the neutral route and then go to the other ones. But it was so funny to me that just one little different choice at the very end was what made the difference for that. It was like, okay, well, I guess I got to be a little chaotic here.
Isn't the neutral supposed to be the hardest, best ending kind of?
Yeah, that's the hardest one to usually get to. Mm-hmm. And that's why it was so funny to me that it was just me picking at the last box option before it locked in. That's like, you picking this last one. It's like, okay, well, there you go. You're neutral now. Good job. But no, 4 was a really good time, and I've really enjoyed revisiting the game over the years to get the other endings and stuff. And I do like how, the neutral route's the more expansive one with the ending, but the other 2 are very nice and have some nice content and story stuff. Kind of gives a little more light on certain things as well, which I like about these games. Gives you a little more perspective on certain things that other routes might not tell you about. But I will say, it's very, very gut punching. One of the fights you have to do, right after you get locked in, you have this whole dungeon where you have to get through this monochrome colored forest. You get through that. You then have to escape from the building that the perpetual reactor is in, and you have just the most gut wrenching fight. And I've experienced in RPG. I felt so bad that you had to do that, and that the poor character that is in the fight, she just doesn't want your hand, or she doesn't want your hands to get dirty, so she ends up. What is that called? She commits senpuku. Senpuku in Japan. What is that? It's where they commit. It's that
Seppuku?
Japanese. Yeah, senpuku. Thank you. It's where they take their own life, and It's so tragic. It really is. And the boss music for that part too really hammers the mood in. And if you were like me and you played the neutral route first, and that pops up, you're like, oh my god, no, that's terrible. But yeah, like 4 was a really great experience. A lot of different emotions, a lot of the story, music, all that good stuff. For me, it was one of those games where it did just about everything right. I know it's got some hiccups to it. I'm not going to act blind to that. I know it's hard to navigate around the map, which I know Platty you had trouble with. But
yep. Honestly, I really like the game, and I think going on to play like Persona Q later, like I don't think I would have played that. He was like, yeah, of course it's an Etrian Odyssey thing, but I was like, man, I really like the whole SMT thing. That was my first introduction to anything in the series. I hadn't played any Personas or anything, and yeah, I liked it well enough, even though I had to like take a break. And then when I came back, I think the reason I took a break is like I was so lost in frickin' Tokyo. And when I came back, I was like still lost and somehow managed to get back to the beginning and then very carefully followed a guide, I think, for a couple hours. And I'm like, okay, now I know where I am. Now I can progress again. And then after that, I made my way pretty well through the game again.
Yeah, that definitely is like one of the more frustrating things. I kind of learned where stuff was by the landmarks around it, but it was kind of weird that they didn't have like a little text thing like on the screen somewhere that was like, hey, this is the entrance to this area, or this is the entrance to this place, or whatever. But they took the feedback well, and they made SMT4 Apocalypse, which is a direct follow-up, which is again, it kind of gets into the whole like different timeline thing with SMT games. It's really complicated to explain, but basically they took a lot of that feedback and improved with this really expanded sequel that kind of takes a different perspective on the events of 4, instead of it just being like, oh, it's the same game, but now it's with some new stuff. It's a like completely different experience. But we're not here to talk about that. We're talking about 4, good old 4, and that's one that I just really enjoyed it, and it was one that I liked enough that I still have it sitting on my game shelf. It's a sealed copy of one of the launch ones that came out for the game. I've been holding on to that for, 10 years now since that came out, which is crazy to think that, but but yeah, got a lot of love for 4.
I liked how, and I think it was when you died, there was an option to use play coins from the 3DS.
Oh, yes.
To revive, because this was the time when I finally got to it. It was after 2013, and I had a little kid, and my wife had a dog when we got married, and I never had a dog. I'm not a dog person. I love other people's dogs. I'll pet your dog. I'll play with your dog. But you know what? You can go walk your own damn dog and pick up its poop. And my wife was very happy to just keep taking care of the dog even when I moved in. But when she got pregnant, and she was very pregnant and had a little baby, it was like, this dog is now my responsibility. So I occupied myself a lot by bringing my 3DS on walks, and I ended up getting lots of play coins. I was like always at that 300 limit. So
yeah,
I would gladly spend them anytime I could.
Yeah, that is one thing I did, just a little detail with that one too. So when you end up dying, you have a little cutscene where you see there's all these souls that are waiting to move on. Well, you get up to it, and SMT, if you never played one of these games, or Persona or whatever, they always have the demons be like different characters from mythologies, religions, folklores, all that stuff. Well, when you get there, the keeper who's going to get the souls across the river, Styx, is Charon, or Charon, I don't know how you say his name, Charon, I believe, from Greek mythology. And you have to bribe him to get you back into the world of living because he doesn't want to deal with another soul down there. What is it? He says, like, I've been working for years with, like, no breaks in between. So you know what? I'm going to make you a deal. If you slip me a little bit of maca, which is the currency, I'll let you back up to the world of the living, and we'll just act like none of this ever happened. Or you can use play coins, as Platty said. So, which was... a funny little thing too, because I looked into that because I'm like, I don't think Karen's ever been in one of these games before. Well, sure enough, it had actually been like close to like 15, almost 20 years at that point since he had been in an SMT game, because the last one he was in was the first Devil Summoner game way back on the Sega Saturn in Japan. So it was cool to see that they brought him back as like this fun little nod where it's like, you know what, you died, but I'll help you out here, okay? We'll just overlook all this. You just slip me a little cash.
So he could spend it on his next day off.
Yep, which would be probably never. It's a great cutscene too, because when you get there, it's like 30 seconds of just showing like this mountain of souls. Everybody's just standing there waiting, and it's like you're rising up above that, and then I assume like the perspective is like it's Flynn's soul like rising above everybody and just kind of slowly lands in front of Karen, because he's probably just like, all right, you know what, you're good enough. You cut the line. Just come here. Yeah, it's little things like that I like about this game. But yeah, I think that's all I got to say about that one.
What'd you say, Matt?
Well, in the fifth outtake of the Shin Megami Tensei franchise, if you die, unfortunately, there are no play coins, no nothing. You and the counterpart that you have that allows you to fight the demons dissolve into nothing.
Yeah, that's like the old school. I'll give Atlas credit for that. They've kept pretty consistent with doing that for the games, regardless of what particular sub series it is. Because even Persona's like that too. The protagonist dies, that's it, game over. Which is especially funny in that one because you have human allies instead of demons. So that's the funniest part.
It's kind of jarring, to be completely honest about it.
Yeah, it's kind of expected with SMT. The games kind of don't pull their punches. So, but I get it though. It can be frustrating.
All right, I will go into my next game, and this is one that actually, right before, speaking of vacation, right before I left on vacation, the other podcast that I help run, RPG Backtrack over at RP Gamer, I had not quite finished Cold Steel 3, and we were scheduled to do it, and then last minute we pivoted to talk about, hey, Rune Factory 4. So not even the first time I've talked Rune Factory 4 this summer, so I'll throw a link to that down in the show notes, but I'll tell you all my good Rune Factory 4 stuff here, and just like we've recently had the Etrian Odyssey re-release, Rune Factory 4 had its special re-release a couple years ago on the Switch, so it's there for 3DS. You can pick this one up for pretty darn cheap on the Switch anytime at this point, and I am really looking forward, probably within the next month, to getting my hands on Rune Factory 3 Special, because it's been even longer since I played that one. Much like Yangus said, he played the Etrian Odysseys out of order. I actually didn't play the Etrian Odysseys out of order. I played them as they came out, but the Rune Factories I got mixed up on at some point. I don't know how I ever missed two, but all of a sudden the third one was out, and then the fourth one, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, I think I missed one here. But Rune Factory 4 was really damn good. It was the last one before the company Marvelous got shut down. Or was it Marvelous that shut down? Or whoever made Rune Factory? I
believe it was Marvelous.
No, Marvelous is it's Neverland. Marvelous, I think, published it, and Marvelous has actually brought it back recently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I think it was made by Neverland, and all their staff ended up going to Marvelous, and got just absorbed in making other games for a long time. But it was a good 3-act game, kind of like Dragon Quest 11. You had a first act. You were up on this airship. You're on an airship, and suddenly you're falling out of the airship. And you land in a town. You actually crash through town hall and land on a dragon. There's just a dragon sitting in the middle of town hall. It's like, hey, I'm the local god. How are you? Ventus Will. She's a female divine wind dragon. And they're like, oh, you must be that. And you can pick your gender in the game. So it's like, oh, you must be the princess that's supposed to come. Or you're supposed to be the prince. And everybody starts treating you pretty good. And like, oh, this is great. But pretty soon the prince shows up from the local monarchy, and they're like, oh, sorry, thought you were them. And you have a lot of good Rune Factory games. You have amnesia, so you couldn't even tell them that you weren't the prince. You're like, oh, maybe I was. But as things would happen in a Rune Factory game, you're like, hey, well, you could live right here in town hall. We got a big old plot of dirt out back. You want to plant some turnips or something like that? Help yourself. Got some chickens. Got some cows. Chubby dude over in town sells some bread that if you eat it, you learn all these new recipes, and away you go. And oh, by the way, there's some weird stuff happening in a place nearby, so if you want to go fight there, go ahead. So Rune Factory games are basically, they started as a blend of Harvest Moon plus an action RPG. And the action RPG stuff is pretty light. It's not in-depth combat or anything, even though they have a ridiculous amount of stuff that you can make. I think there's 7 different weapon types, from short swords to long swords to lances to wands to some have twin blades and gosh, you could use just big axes, war axes, and war hammers. And all of these in the game, the crafting system is absolutely ridiculous. There's probably like 50 or 60 of every type of weapon. So you're talking like 7 weapon types and 50, 60 things. There's like 400 weapons in the game. And there's, 40, 50 of each type of armor and helmet and shield. And there's just so much stuff that you could be mixing and matching. And, you're knocking down trees, you're chopping up wood, there's always rocks, and there's special rocks that you can mine out in the dungeons. And you can do that and bring back different ores. And it's just the alchemy system for these games is so deep. And then there's all the foods. And you end up building a kitchen, and there's like 6 different things. You could cook food in the pot. You could cook it on the stove pan and a frying pan, or you could cook in the oven. You could you could boil it. You could do all these different things. And like, again, there's just so many foods. It's ridiculous. Trying 100% a game like this and make everything and sell everything at the end of the day I haven't even come close to it. And again, Rune Factory 4 ended up being a game that I put over 100 hours into the first time. But Arc 1, you're mainly going and beating all these little dungeons around town. And a lot of times when you beat the dungeon, you find out that the boss that was there is actually just a good person that, has been like warped. And you beat them and they wake up and they're like, oh man, thanks for saving me. And you get a new townsperson. So after a few bits of this, I think there's 4 bosses that you end up beating. Everybody's pretty good. You kind of get this ending, and you find out something about them and the dragon, and it's actually kind of pretty bad because the dragon's gonna, suddenly get sick. So, while that all happens, that's done with the first arc. Then there's a second arc where you start having sex with an empire or something like that. I don't know. There's this, and I never know how to pronounce it because I really don't think it's Ever's voice. Yes,
don't you hate it when that happens? You have to have sex with an empire.
And I think it's mentioned in a couple different Rune Factory games, but it's the SECHS. I can't know how to pronounce that other than the Sex Empire. SECHS. Sex. Yeah. You got to go, take on that Sex Empire. The evil Sex Empire. All that sex. Yeah, I mean,
a whole lot of sex going on around here, man.
A whole lot of sex going on there. So,
bring your protection.
Yeah, but this is a whole nother 30, 40-hour arc. In the meantime, you're still expanding your farm. You're getting animal things. This wasn't the first game to do it, but I think it was the first game that you could take along 2 people with you from town, or one of the people and one of the animals that you were raising. Like if you could befriend a wolf animal, well, hey, the wolf's now your sidekick, and suddenly, you got the wolf, you got one of the townsfolk with you. And if you would just take an item and walk up to a person, and in Harvest Moon games and everything, you usually see them, you pick up a turnip, it's standing there above your character's head, and you could either see him put it in the backpack or go throw it somewhere. Well, if you take a piece of armor and just go talk to somebody, it gives them the armor, and it changes their sprite, and suddenly they're wearing the armor. And so you could actually equip townspeople with better and better items and bring them with you. They would gain experience. Of course, there's a whole marriage system, so you could be giving gifts. And then there was this other system called, and 5 did it as well, and I got stuck on 5 with it, although 4 is the one that apparently had a lot of problems. But there's these town stories that go on, and they're almost like side quests, but they just kind of randomly populate when you encounter a certain person at a certain place. You start their little side story, and you can't move on to the next side story, or certain options get locked off until you finish that one side story, and then you can't start other people's side stories. And I had really good luck in 4 about it. At the end of Act 2, something bad happens, and you get an ending, and it's kind of like, yay, but, sad. Kind of like in Dragon Quest XI. And there's a whole 3rd arc to the game. There's a whole 3rd act that if you want to go through and do that, you can make things happier in the end. It's considered post-game, but, again, why wouldn't you try to do it? It's tough. There is definitely, I think I beat it the first time around. I definitely did not get through it when I played it on the Switch. I'm like, oh man, this is a lot to do. You start getting some of your memories back, learning who you are, because you have amnesia the whole game. But just tons and tons of content, easily over 100. There's a place called the Sharon's Maze. You go downstairs in your little basement and you can go do like a bonus area that has really high level monsters. And I can't remember if it was so easy to do in the 3DS version or if it was even there. But in the Switch version, I got lucky, like went down there, recruited one monster that was like level 200. I was like level 70. And I used that monster to get through quite a bit of the post game. But that just Rune Factory 4, it was the best at the time. And honestly, Rune Factory 5 kind of has a lot of performance issues. It was all right. I liked it. But Rune Factory 4 still stands as the pinnacle of the series. And playing it on the 3DS that year in 2013 when it came out was just super exciting. Like I was so excited and like, oh, this series is awesome. You know, here we are. It's going to be going on forever. Like 4 is so great. And actually the company, I think, disbanded before the US release ever came out. The publisher ended up finishing it for a North American release, or maybe it was like a month or two after it came out. And it was just like, nope, that's it. Gone. Neverland is dead. So it is still the pinnacle of the Rune Factory series for me. We did find out that there are some more Rune Factories coming in the last Nintendo Direct, or maybe it was even the Nintendo Direct before that, but got a while for that coming out. But Rune Factory 3 special's coming out next month. Pretty excited to get back into that series. I don't think any of you guys ever played a Rune Factory game, have you? Nope. Understandable. It's definitely pretty
No,
niche.
I have not. I have the fourth one on my 3DS when I bought it years ago on a sale, but I just never started it.
It's a deep game to get into. Once you get going, you're like, oh my god, there's so many systems. You get into that daily system where you wake up, you got to go tend to your crops, you got to do this, you got to do that. And again, I can't remember if it was in 3, and I just didn't pay attention to it. But like 4 gets ridiculous. Like everything has a number. Which is another thing. And you can work on your running skills. Like if you just run around a lot, you'll be like, level up, your running skill leveled up. The more you sleep, your sleep levels up some nights. And it's like, it's not like there's better sleep. At the end of every day, you sleep and you wake up with full health. It's not like you can wake up with more health. So I never understood what leveling up your sleep ability does.
Takes care of those nightmares.
Yeah. Or go to the item shop and get a CPAP if your sleep level is too low.
But like even your like the dirt outside, like the soil quality could be like 4.32, and you couldn't raise the level of your crops above a certain level, like a level 4 if your soil was like 4.32. You had to get up to get it up to 6.71, or it just became such little micromanagement. Which in a lot of stuff you could ignore it. Like if you had a decent amount of money and just wanted to go exploring and bring back a lot of monster loot and sell it, great. You want to focus on just raising animals and every day going milking them all and getting the eggs and just doing that, great. You just wanted to spend a lot of time crafting stuff, you could go to the store, buy a lot of cheap stuff, bring it back to your area and work on crafting and make better armor and whatever, and then sell that. You could do that too. So it didn't force you in any one thing, but my god, there's just so much to do. And
aren't like a lot of MMORPGs, like the bigger ones like that, where you can kind of specialize in different things and not necessarily have to do battling all the time? You're like, hey, I'm going to be a crafter, or hey, I'm going to farm, or hey, I'm going to mine, whatever.
Yeah, hearing people talk about Final Fantasy XIV, the little bit I did with Dragon Quest X, I just kind of got to that area, and I decided to be a blacksmith and tried to make a bunch of my stuff. There was like the forge from 11 kind of got its start there in 10. Oh, right. I played around with that just a little bit because those menus started getting deeper text than my Google Translate could easily do.
Yeah, like the Poop King Platty or whatever you had.
Yeah. Was it Poop? God, what was
it? Something like that. I don't remember the exact wording, but it was.
I want to say it was even like shit or something at one time.
Oh, maybe it was that.
You just change the angle of the phone and the translation changed. It was it
was the funniest thing though.
Yep, Shit King or Plat Shit or something like that.
Yeah, it reminds me of the time. Sorry, go ahead.
It was because I actually looked up. I went on a Japanese website and I tried to look up like what a Platinum King jewel was called in I guess it's kanji, and tried to put that in, but the last symbol wouldn't fit. They only let you do like 7 and or maybe it was 8 or whatever. But the way Plat King translated it was one more thing than would fit as the name selection.
Oh, funny.
Why there was a rough limit to name selection on a Dragon Quest X game like that? It was on the Wii. It wasn't really got memory restraints by then, but no, there was. So it was fun. It was fun. It always translated my name wrong. It usually had platinum. Maybe it was platinum shit that was.
Maybe that's what
sounds familiar.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've got the screenshot somewhere.
Got the platinum shits.
I got the platinum shits. Let me tell you, they're hard to squeeze out because can't really squeeze platinum.
When you know you're in trouble.
Plan.
And on the squeezing platinum out your ass. Well, we'll go to Pendy and your next game. What a transition there.
Wow.
I mean, hey, it's my specialty. I mean, it works. It works. If it works, it works. But yes, my next game is another turn-based strategy RPG for the 3DS. It's Oppenheimer Awakening. No, it's Fire Emblem Awakening. I learned in this game that while I absolutely love turn-based strategy RPGs, it's probably my favorite genre, I am by no means an expert when it comes to these games. In this particular game, there are three levels of difficulty: normal, hard, and lunatic. I tried lunatic, and I couldn't even get past the first stage. That was a hard nope. I was like, okay, guess I'm not as good as I thought I was. So let's go a little bit easier here. And this is just my personal preference, another welcome addition to this game is casual mode, where you don't have to worry about characters dying permanently. This series was famous for its permadeath. If you lost a side character in battle, they were dead forever. Good luck going forward, or go back and try the mission again and hope they don't die and get good. I had played a couple of the Fire Emblem games before, one on the GBA and one on the DS. I think there's multiple for both systems, but I had just played one of them for each. And I just absolutely hated that. I'm the kind of guy that has to save all the characters. I have to. So if I lost one of them, there's no way I was just going to go and let them die forever. I was redoing that mission. So with this mode, I could be a filthy casual and not have to worry about permadeath and waste my time. Ain't nobody got time for that. At least I don't, or did not. So, do you think that's an affront to the Fire Emblem religion? No problem. There is also classic mode, where permadeath is still the name of the game. Once you have picked your game modes, you get to build your own character named Robin. You can pick from female and male character creator options down to even the voice the character that they have. To my absolute joy, I noticed that one of the female voices was Wendy Lee, one of my favorite voice actors of all time. She is probably most famous for dubbing the voice of Faye in the Cowboy Bebop anime, Faye Valentine. Warning, a little bit of light plot spoilers ahead, just so you know. So once you have your mode selected and your character created, you are thrust into a deep and satisfying medieval-style tale of amnesia and time travel. Yes.
What? Amnesia? No,
yes.
We haven't heard of that.
And time travel. Never heard of that either. I mean, this game checks the JRPG amnesia and time travel blocks as your custom character wakes up having no idea who they are or what happened to them, with only a fragment of what appeared to be a dream to go on. Despite playing with these common JRPG tropes, the plot is actually a lot of fun. As a tactician, you assist a mighty warrior and prince named Crom as he ascends to the throne of his kingdom, and also eventually his time-traveling future daughter, Lucina, as they fight to battle the evil dragon Grima and prevent a dark and grisly future using the magical falchion sword and Fire Emblem shield. As this is a turn-based strategy RPG, battles are waged on a grid-like map, and you will pit your army against enemy forces. Fire Emblem is also famous for its weapon triangle. Basically, lances beat swords, swords beat axes, and axes beat lances. At least in this game, other attacks such as bows and magic are neutral. When one unit attacks When one unit attacks another on the map, the game switches to 3D mode and plays out the attacks, and you can even switch to a first-person view, which was pretty neat. Pairing up units is very, very important in this game. When units are next to each other, they can grant supporting buffs, they can do a dual attack, or one unit can block for the other. How effective that pairing is determined by how strong the relationship is between characters. These are built through support conversations between missions. Many of your characters can also marry each other and have children. This is actually significant as your future children will all be recruitable when they arrive with Lucina in the middle of the game. There are also a lot of fun classes to take advantage of in the game. There are 40 total. You have fighters, warriors, archers, magers, various flying units, etc. All these classes have an advanced version that you can promote them to, or they can reclass into something else. Most characters have a limited range of what they can promote or reclass into, but your custom Robin character can just be about anything that she or he wants, depending on the gender that you pick. Fun fact, this game saved the franchise. Supposedly, the plan was to retire the series if it didn't sell at least 250k units, as sales for the previous games had been in a state of steady decline. This prompted the development team to include many different elements from many previous games and make an ultimate Fire Emblem game going out in a blaze of glory. And it worked. The game sold around 2 million copies worldwide, with around 500k of that coming from Japanese sales. This was more than double anything the series had sold before, and subsequent titles have only improved upon these numbers and sold even more copies worldwide. Bonus fun fact, Chrom and Lucina appear as playable characters in Project Cross Zone 2. See? It's all tied together. So this game is considered by many to be top tier. It scores a 92 on Metacritic with a 9.0 average user score and is on or near the top of many people's greatest 3DS games of all time. If you've never played this type of game before, this is one of the best games you can start with, especially with all the different gameplay options. You can go in as a filthy casual, or you can go in insane and just go with the highest difficulty and challenge yourself to the max. So you can play it however you want it, and I highly recommend it.
Nice. Yeah, I'd always heard about how it kind of saved the series, and a lot of those names that you mentioned, I've played through Fire Emblem Heroes and started the second one. My son kept wanting to play, and we played a little bit, and he's kind of meh. So, but I know, at least I recognize all those names.
Yes, I think Chrom got eventually put into one of the Smash games, and I think people were they were kind of upset about it because like, oh no, great, it's another sword user, yay, or whatever. So.
Gosh, what else are they into? Oh, Tokyo Mirage Sessions.
Yes, that is correct.
Yep.
Because you've played that, right?
I loved that game.
Yeah.
That was like, to me, that was Persona, but so much quicker, and the battles were fucking amazing. Because you could just, if you got everybody's resistance lined up correctly, you could just like start a chain of 8 attacks or whatever. Ooh. And it was all like this musical base. So like it was like
That's right.
This person would follow after you, follow after you, follow after you. My guess is it being set in like modern time with a whole bunch of I don't know if it was really fan servicey, but it had a whole like Japanese idol system behind it. Like you were in a Japanese idol production company, and that was like the whole basis of the game. But almost like Personas, you got Personas, but your Personas were Fire Emblem characters.
Oh, now I remember your review of the game and one of the previous side quests we were talking about that. That's how they tied them in. That's
how they tied them in. It was it was like, hey, we're gonna take a kind of Persona-y game, but instead of getting Personas, your Personas are gonna be Fire Emblem characters.
That's such a weird mixture of two different game franchises. Like it's like when you get Project X Zone or Project Cross Zone, you get like 10 or 20, 10, 15, 20 different games. Okay, it's going to be crazy, but just to have those particular two franchises that are nothing like each other, besides the fact that they're RPGs kind of mixed into each other like that, it's interesting.
Yeah, it was funny because the first time I'd ever heard of it, like I didn't even hear about it on the Wii U because that system really doesn't exist. It's just a dirty lie that Eel spreads. But I did a podcast one time, and I I joined it just because I was like, oh, well, I played the first game, and it was something about like, you put your RPG in my RPG, and we talked about Persona Q on the first half, and it was like, hey, they blended Etrian Odyssey and Persona together, and then you have this game, which like you made an idle game with all this, like you almost took like a Persona type game but blended it with Fire Emblem, and just weird RPG combinations that you would never think would work. And I mean, they never really made another one, but hey, it worked well enough that they re-released it on the Switch. So
well, there you go, with
the Sharp FE title. So it was good enough. Like I still have a lot of. I played that game for a hell of a long time, and I tell you what, I held down the speed button through a hell of a lot of dialogue. Just like, don't really care what's going on back at the office and what next TV show I'm going to get booked on, but.
Oh, that's the silly crap that I live for. That's like they have all that crap in Project Cross Zone that I'd like. Oh, how's this guy going to interact with this guy? And it's like, okay, interesting. Okay, it's Jill Valentine yelling at Ryu. Okay, cool.
Yep, and even like Persona games, like or even the Cold Steel games. You got to, in between missions, you would have like, you could, hang out with two other people for a little bit. And the rewards for those were like really good though. If you hung out with your boss enough, like, gosh, I can't remember something with, you got a huge discount at the stores, or it just opened up like huge lines of magic or something like that. So it was really, really, really beneficial to do that. I was like, well, I'm going to do it anyway, just because you can only hang out with like one or two for every thing. So it's not like I got to go around and do something with everybody. But gosh, I just remember the benefits of doing those side quests in between missions was like just ridiculously overpowered.
Oh, I remember that reminds me of like playing Yakuza Like a Dragon quest, and being friends with everybody in the bar, and the bonuses you could get from becoming closer with your buddies. Bring a lot of benefits.
So I didn't have anything that I want to talk about. You have any like honorable mentions or just quick shout outs, Yangus? Oh, he might have stepped away for a minute. Right here is where I'm going to slip in. Hey, Jay, if Jay has called us, I will put it in right here. And then, Yangus, I see you're back. You got any other 2013 quick shout-outs you want to mention?
Yeah, there was quite a few. Like, when I was going through the list, I played quite a few games from this year. There was Soul Hackers. Well, a lot of Atlas stuff actually came out in 2013. Soul Hackers, which was a remaster of the original Sega Saturn game from the Devil Summoner series. That was pretty good. I enjoyed that kind of retro feel to it as well. A funny story about that one, too. I forget where he works at now in the industry, but it's a guy who went on to be, I think works for Sony, if I remember correctly. He told a story when that remake or remaster was coming out that he actually back in the day imported a Japanese Sega Saturn and a copy of the game, and he tried playing through it because he was like, oh my gosh, this RPG looks so cool. It's all about technology and hacking all these sorts of things, because that was kind of the big thing with 90s related stuff in Japan with anime and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's that one. There's the Etrian Odyssey Untold remake of the first game, which I know Platty likes the story mode a lot. I liked the classic mode a lot. Both modes are good. My biggest complaint with that one is that I really don't like that they spoiled the twist pretty early on of the original, which is really stupid that they did that instead of trying to build up to it more. But
you know what? That game, The Untold, it annoyed me when the Rune Factory 4 got pushed back because they released on the same day. They were both October 1st, 2013.
Oh, really?
Yep. So, and since I'd spent all summer playing Etrian Odyssey 3 and 4 back to back, Untold took a 6-month break.
Funny.
But another game that year. Yep.
Another one from a series that I like is the Mario and Luigi games. It was Mario and Luigi Dream Team, which came out in, I think, September of that year.
Oh, yeah.
First 3DS game for the series. It's not my favorite entry, to be perfectly honest, but it's all right. It's fine. It's a little too tutorial heavy in spots, and its difficulty is really weird. Sometimes it feels like it's not that bad, and other times you just feel like stuff's kicking your butt. And that's really weird for a Mario RPG, because usually the difficulty's pretty well balanced. But anyway, that was another big one that came out. Had some cool stuff to it, especially with the Dreamscape stuff with Luigi. That was fun.
They had gigantic Luigi, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's where you controlled him with the side holding of the 3DS, which those were fun, but some of those battles also went on for a little too long, I thought. But it was a cool idea, though. But I know I played Pikmin 3 that year, which I think that might be one of the games that Jay was planning to talk about, so I won't say too much since I'm sure he said plenty of it. It's a good entry, though, of the series, and it was so good that they gave it another chance on the Switch with the deluxe version, which basically had like all the DLC and some new stuff to it. And fourth one actually just came out earlier this month, like a week ago or so, on the 21st, I believe. Let me see, what else was on that list? There was some Zelda stuff that came out that year, too. You had Wind Waker HD, which I'm sure Dwayne, he really hates how that game looks on the Wii U, but I thought it looked pretty nice on there. A little too much bloom in some spots, but really, like, Wind Waker was one of those good-looking games already to begin with, so getting a little bit of an update on the Wii U with some nice new additions and quality of life stuff really made for a great experience on the system, and made great use of the gamepad, too. I will say that. And then, what was later that year? There was Link Between Worlds, which was a direct sequel to Link to the Past, which was another really good Zelda game. I didn't beat that one until 2014 because I had gotten that for Christmas that year. But that was another really good Zelda game. Nice top-down experience, and I liked how they kind of had the dual world thing from Link to the Past, but now it was, instead of just being like the Dark World, now it was an entirely different kingdom called Lorule, which was a alternate version of Hyrule. Still sort of the same idea, but totally different landscapes, locations, things like that. And those were at least a few that caught my eye when browsing through that list. I'm sure there's others that I played that year that I just don't recall off the top of my head. But those are some other ones I'd give a little shout out to real quick. Anything else you guys want to add?
Go ahead, Pendy.
Yes. So I'd also like to mention Mario and Luigi Dream Team. I really loved that game when it came out. I know I talked about before, the gigantic Luigi is fun. I love the battles and the timed hits and that you come to expect from that series, and I really enjoyed that game a lot. It's probably my second favorite one, I want to say, after Bowser's Inside Story. And then another one that came out that year that was awesome was the remake of a game called Flashback, which was originally released in 1992. And I had played it back when it was on the Super Nintendo, but it's made by Delphine Software, who also did another favorite game of mine called Out of This World, sometimes called Another World, depending on what country you're in. And basically these games are kind of action platformers with some puzzles to them. You usually have a gun that you can have limited use for. In this particular game, no, that was not Out of This World. But yeah, anyways, it has in this particular game, there's like cinematics to it as well. There's this big conspiracy theory going on where aliens are posing as humans and you get framed for something. You haven't seen that before, or maybe seeing right now on Disney Plus in a certain show. But yeah, it's a fantastic game. They made a great remake for it that year. I think you could still get it like on PSN and some other online stores. At least I didn't buy it until like many years later, maybe a few years ago. But it's a nice little remake. They completely redid the graphics, and it's a very short game. I want to say it only takes like 5 to 8 hours or something like that to beat. So fun little Super Nintendo game. If you want to check out a nice little platformer of a cool little conspiracy story, it's a good game to play. But that's all I got for honorable mentions.
And I had no honorable mentions. I feel like I didn't play many 2013 games, and you know what? This is the first list because we did 93 and we did 2003. This list is definitely considerably longer. Who knew? As time went on, they started making more games.
Yeah, I'd have to go back through the list and see if there was something else I played from that year. I was like I said earlier, I was at halfway through my first year, and then later in the year, I started my second year of college. So, I was pretty busy with all that stuff, so I didn't really play a whole lot of new stuff that came out.
What?
But
wait, none of us played Grand Theft Auto 5?
No. I have a copy on my PS4, but I don't have
Legends?
I've played some past Grand Theft Auto games. I played 3, I played 4, I played Vice, but I kind of dropped off it by then, and I never actually played 5. So, and San Andreas. I played a little bit of San Andreas, but not really that much. That's kind of where I started to drop off it. I mean, they're a fun distraction, but that's when I started to play less games a little bit. And during those years, that's when I played. My PlayStation 3 was basically a glorified Blu-ray player, and it was basically DS and 3DS for many years, just playing all the RPGs that came out on those systems. Dragon Quest, Dragon Quest 9 back in the DS, and then it just kept going on and on and on. 7, 8, all these other great RPGs like the ones I've talked about tonight. So the DS and the 3DS era of RPGs was just absolutely fantastic for what they came out with during that period of time.
Oh yeah, definitely. I know. I was trying to put together a sheet of all the games that I've played. I tried for years to try to keep it up on Evan gave us a website one time, and I tried that. Backloggery, I think it was. And then How Long to Beat has a way to do it. And then I was like, I'll just make a Google sheet because then I'll own it or whatever. And I think by far in terms of like games that I played and beat, DS and 3DS in terms of RPGs have I've done like 24 on each system or something like that. No way have I played 24 RPGs on PS4 or Super Nintendo or something like that. But no, the DS and the 3DS did it.
Yeah, PS1 and PS2 were the only ones that ever came close to me for total RPGs. But yeah, because the DS and the 3DS that was just an RPG machine. Had so many different titles for it. New games and remakes and ports and all sorts of stuff.
Something to be said for having a cheaper system to develop for than instead of always having to keep up with the highest level of stuff.
That's how Nintendo made their bread and butter, and how they, honestly kept alive when their home console systems weren't doing so well until they hit the Wii. I mean, the Pokemon and their handheld systems, they were king. And they weren't like the most advanced systems, but they were affordable because of that. And they were always number one. That's what everyone wanted to play and could afford.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a good thing to end on. I was actually looking. PlayStation 4 came out in 2013.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Early? It happened the near end of the year,
November,
maybe.
Yeah.
That was the very end of the PS3 era.
Yep. Alrighty, well that's it for this episode of Slime Time Side Quests. Thank you, Yangus. Thank you, Departed Mattcraft. Thank you, Pendy, and Virtual Jay for joining us tonight.
He died.
Maybe Jay. Well, he's no longer. Well, that sounds like he's no longer with us.
Yeah, you're making it worse.
I'm making it worse.
What you guys didn't see is off-screen Platty threw a knife and stabbed Mattcraft in the back as he's walking out of the room we're recording in. He just fell over dead. He's laying there in that doorway right now.
And all you hear is the crickets chirping. Yep. We heard when he was talking.
Yep. But good episode tonight. Plenty of games to talk about, and I'm sure there's a lot we missed. Maybe we'll come back to 2013 with some other guests at some point. See if maybe we missed a few spots, or if I ever played GTA 5 at some point.
I was going to say I'm looking at the highest revenue games. I'm like, we missed all of these. None of us played The Last of Us or BioShock Infinite.
Nope. Well, there was one game I could have talked about, Rayman Legends, but honestly, that was a stupid game, and so that game was originally going to be a Wii U exclusive. But then they're like, no, we're gonna release it with on other consoles. Which, all right, fine. Then they delayed it to come out the same month as GTA 5, and it's like Ubisoft, you guys just shot yourself in the foot. You really think people are gonna buy your cartoony platform over the next Rockstar game? Come on now. Now, I mean, I played it and I thought it was great on the Wii U, but yeah, they were really stupid for delaying it as long as they did, because the game was already done on Wii U. They just had to wait and delay it because I guess it's mainly because of a Microsoft thing back then. I don't know if it's still the case. If there was a multi-platform release, you couldn't release the multi-platform version of the game before the Xbox version, so they had to wait for September to release them all at once. So they just totally shot themselves in the foot. But yeah. But no, that was another one too. But like I said, there's plenty of other games that we could have talked about. Maybe we'll come back to this topic eventually, or we'll do another year. Who knows? There's a lot to talk about from 2013, I'm sure.
Barbie Streamhouse.
Yep.
I'll get right on that. It's on the DS, right? I can just emulate that pretty quickly.
Ooh, multiple systems. You can.
Everybody picks a different system. We'll all play different ones.
Discuss the differences in the
we'll
Wii U
the finer details of each one. My version allows you to get on a date with Ken. Well, my version allows you to pet the dog.
Which has the highest graphic fidelity of her Barbie dream dress.
Yes, we need to get what's that YouTube channel where they like show off the different speeds of like how the games run. We need to get those guys in on it too. They can help out. Have a side by side.
Mine ran at 15 frames per second.
Yes. Mine ran at 20.
Oh boy. All right, well, if we're discussing Barbie Dreamhouse for this long, I think we're done. And as Woodis not so really said, you guys can probably cut a bunch of the crap there at the end of the episodes. So again, we shall. Bye, everybody.
Side quest complete.